How you doing? Far away. Glad to be here.
So Kevin, obviously there's been a lot of emphasis with the ground game, getting that a bit running. It's been the worst ranked rushing attack the last couple of years. Not all on the offensive line, but you guys are kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to that. When you look at what you have to work with and what's happened, say, last year, are there some easy identifiable fixes that you and Liam can do to make some immediate gains?
Sure, I would say, every year is a new year as it relates to putting your run game together, and that's something we've gone through this offseason that we're putting together now in terms of laying the groundwork and foundation for how we want to run the football in the fall. Every team in the league is trying to find better ways to run the football, and even those teams that finished at the top of the league, rushing, be it yards per carry, yards per game, they might have had a 10-yard run on a certain play, and then they go back and watch in the winter and say, okay, well, hey, that was a 10-yard game, but if you look at our process over results, hey, we could have blocked this better. How can we always execute this combination block better, this one-on-one block better, and find better ways to do it? And then finding different ways to improve or identifying things is just like, okay, well, let's find out what our guys do well as it relates. Let's lay the groundwork and foundation of what we want to be. All right, find out what these guys do best, and then veer in that direction as the season goes along.
How difficult, too, is it where you know these guys, you're getting to know them now,
right,
but you haven't seen them in action, under your leadership, and the pads don't come on until July, right?
Right.
That's kind of the hallmark of the offensive line, the physicality, setting the tone.
Absolutely.
Being physical in the run game, but you got to kind of wait to see what you have there.
Right. So, you could see traits, you could see things that show up on film, just even being in this division last year, just seeing these guys on tape throughout the course of the year, and then studying them this offseason, and then watching them here on the grass last week and then this morning, you find what guys can do well just in shorts and T-shirts and how well they move and how they can adjust and how they move, and you see those things. And then as you move along and judging what you've seen before, certain runs that are similar that we want to execute this fall, okay, and you get a vision for what guys do well and what they may need to improve on.
Kevin, as a new position coach, it's got to be nice to have a first-round draft pick utilized at your position. What do you like about Graham Barton?
Well, I would say first-year coach, 20th-year coach, you always
Right.
like first-round pick. But, yeah, Graham, I would say he's wired the right way. He plays the game the right way. It's clear on film that he loves football. It's clear when you talk to him that football's important and he loves ball. And that's line item one, and that the type of guy he is and the type of guy he'll be for the Bucs. In terms of what you see on film, a lot of the same things I'm sure you've heard before, just a great combination of speed and athleticism, and as well as power, lower body strength, explosiveness, flexibility, all those things that you're looking for in a lineman.
What about Elijah Klein? What do you like about him?
Yeah, so Elijah stuck out on tape through the evaluation process, a guy with some twitch and suddenness, but also a square-bodied guy that also plays the game the right way. You see the physicality, the effort with which he plays, and a lot to like about Elijah, and we're fortunate that he was there when he was.
Not just high draft pick this year, but you look across the line, just somewhere as first round picks, Gedeke, second round pick, Mubb, second round pick, Hainsey, third round pick. You got a lot of high end talent to work with. What do you like about the rest of these guys on the roster who are kind of the holdovers?
Well, certainly I would say this about all these guys, is that you like them all as men, and they're great teammates. Just my time being with them the last 3 weeks, this being the 4th week, in the meeting room, just being around them in the building. Tristan has been here all winter since I got here. So has Luke. Cody and Rob have been here around a lot, and it's just been great getting to know those guys. And you can tell that they're great teammates, great leaders, and they're the right kind of guys that you want in your room.
You only saw him on film last year, right? But Cody going from the left tackle body that he had at North Dakota State to becoming an NFL guard body, is that been something you've been able to see in terms of the weight room, the weight gain that he's added, how his body looks a little different?
Yeah, certainly. He's put on a little weight. He's starting to fill out. I mean, as a guy in his early 20s, a guy can still, get stronger and get bigger throughout this process. But I remember watching Cody evaluating a different lineman in North Dakota State. Cody was coming out the following year and saying, "Oh, who's this left tackle here?" And like you saw the way he plays, the effort and the physicality with which he plays, which is what makes him a great player. And then the size will help, that's part of growing up in this league, and part of guys moving from tackle to guard, and other guys have done it before as well.
You've added some new players, obviously, but what makes the team get better in the run game up front? And that's such an emphasis, obviously, in all of football. It seems to, rightly or wrongly, fall on those guys, and I know they're very proud about that, but you never want to be last in anything.
Right, and so, it's a number of different factors, and you said it takes all 11, but you mentioned, hey, the O-line's the tip of the spear at the point of attack. And so it's a lot of things with, how we come off the ball, how we hit a combination block, how we hit a one-on-one block, the different schemes with which we use, and just putting these guys in the best position to be successful, and then asking.
To some extent, right?
A lot of it has to do with how we game plan the runs, and what we have going into each week, and how we formation the run or call the run. Certainly, those are part of it. But it's something that takes time throughout the offseason, which we're in now, through camp, and then during the course of the season. There's runs that we'll probably get to this fall that we might not even install in camp, but as you learn the makeup of your team and you find different ways to attack teams running the football, that could become your identity in a certain way. But the bottom line is hey, we got to hit blocks a certain way, attack defense a certain way, and then, like I said, it takes all 11.
How do you go about developing that chemistry on the offensive line?
That's a great question. It starts now in the meeting room, and then on the practice field when we're in a walkthrough setting or a jog-through setting, hearing the guys communicate with one another, get all 5 men to speak the same language from the right side of the line to the left side of the line, from the center inside out, is just getting guys to learn how to speak the same language with one another, be it in the meeting room, before the ball snapped, in the huddle after it's snapped, getting ready for the next play, so that they're all in constant communication with one another, and ultimately you have 5 guys playing as one and all being on the same page.
How do you lay out getting your 5 guys going into camp, right? Saying these are the 5 guys that we're going to let them get that chemistry, continuity, versus we obviously have a battle for left guard happening, right? So switching those guys out with the first team, getting those reps, how do you kind of weigh the two in order to pick up that chemistry?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so you try and get as many reps as you can, and then as you're going along throughout camp and the preseason games is really just measure it and say, hey, this guy's got a lot of snaps at left guard with this center and this left tackle. This guy's got a lot of snaps at right guard with this center or this right tackle. And so that way you try and make it as even as possible so guys can develop that continuity. And then as time goes on, as the season progresses, it's rare that you keep the same 5 all year. And through 17 games, you're going to have different lineups just by virtue of injury. And that's just the reality of playing in the NFL. And so you try to make it to where when the backup comes in, he's ready to plug and play, and there's a seamless transition there with the new player. And so, like I was mentioning about communication and getting all the guys on the same pages, so when a new guy comes in, it's a seamless transition.
You've been in that spot, obviously, the year after the Rams won the Super Bowl with a lot of injuries to that offensive line. So how do you get the next guy? Obviously, it's next man up mentality,
Right.
But the next guy up that when he steps in, it's not. There's not a lack of communication. There's not a lack of it. It just works.
Right. So, yeah, a lot of it's getting guys to play together just in the individual setting of practice. So in that time before you go to the team period of practice, you're working guys with one another, getting a good feel for it. And sometimes because of the NFL the way it is with the practice limitations and how much time you have, you do it in a walkthrough setting, you do it in the meeting room. And so, and then your backups, you train them like starters, and then you train them across the board at different positions so that they're ready to go in at a moment's notice.
Is there a chance that Cody Mount moves from right guard? Did you like what he did enough there? Is he in contention to move to left guard if somebody's better at right guard? Or how do you see that interior competition shaping up?
Yeah, if he's better on one side or if somebody else is better on the other, I would just say it's a matter of finding the 5 best that'll play the best together. And certainly you want to cross-train guys. Interior, you want guards that can snap in a backup role if that comes to play. And it also will help a guard, and I'm not saying this about Cody in particular, but so that a guard knows what it feels like to play center, knows what it's like to communicate at that position. Like I said, train them in case that guy would need to go in and play that position. But then you train guys with both their hands in the ground, especially younger players, train them on both sides so that you find out where guys are the best fit and where it puts the 5 best together.
I know it's a bit of a hypothetical, and it'll be determined on the grass, but is there some peril to having, like, let's say Graham wins the starting center spot, and you've got a second-year guard in Cody Mountain to left or right, and then Elijah Klein maybe is the other guy. Is there some peril for Baker Mayfield to have 2 rookies and a second-year player? Is that ideal or not ideal?
Well, if the young player shows to his teammates and coaches that he belongs and then earns the trust of those veteran players, then yes. I think when a young player comes in, especially a first-year player, and he has the right demeanor, the right makeup, and he shows that he belongs and that this guy's a veteran presence and that he can be trusted, and it really doesn't take very long for a veteran player to figure out, say, hey, this guy belongs. And that would be a challenge to any rookie all across the league. But, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Obviously an adjustment for Cody going from outside to inside his rookie season. Just what would you like to see from him from a technique standpoint, performance standpoint going into year 2?
I would say, and every guard around the league, with the exception of the gifted few, you would just say, hey, the guard position is just keeping what we say the depth of the pocket, and so that there's a place for the quarterback to step in and follow through his throws. And so that's one spot. But just about every guard around the league is always trying to find a different way this offseason where they can keep the pocket cleaner in front of the quarterback so he can step in and make clean throws. But just keeping the depth of the pocket is one of those things, and that's something we'd like to see improve. And then just take the next step for all these young players to really take the next step at their respective positions and what's required of them to be a successful guard, tackle, or center.
I don't know if you've seen Luke Gedeke yet, but he's a guy in game action, likes to get under the opponent's skin, and he's got some nastiness to him. Is that important for an offensive line to have those nasty guys?
Sure. Absolutely. Every yard matters in this league, and every continuation of block through the echo of the whistle, through a finished play, every extra yard that the runner falls forward matters. And so that could be the difference between 3rd and 1 or 1st and 10 after a second down run. And so, yeah, that's certainly something that shows up on tape with Luke and that has compounding effect as the game goes along on the opponent, but also, too, finishing plays, finishing blocks, finishing as a unit has a compounding effect as the game goes along. And so instead of, all right, after a run, instead of 2nd and 7, you're maybe at 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 6. That's a big difference.
Graham hasn't played center since his freshman year, too. I know he projects to be an NFL center, and you can speak to maybe the traits of that. But it's a big position. What's going to be the biggest transition as an NFL center as a rookie in this league?
Sure. As a starting point is just understanding our system of football, not only as a line but as an entire offense. Understand the communication from the center position, from the right to the left side, and then understand how much faster it happens going from the tackle position to the center position inside. But it was encouraging to see someone with the mental toughness of this guy I was coaching at Stanford during COVID in the 2020 season, and knowing how hard that must have been for him to not be around all summer, come in with just a camp, and then start 5 games at center in the ACC, that's unique. Mm-hmm.
Scott's question as far as, the experience versus the talent, right? If the young guy's got the talent and he shows he wins, how do you weigh the experience that he might not have and certain looks and certain things defenses are going to do to him? And then, when do you know when if it's not working out, although he's the most talented, we need to get someone more experienced in there?
Yeah, great question. I would say it's just about production and then going off of what you see on film and then who executes at the highest level, really. And you try not to make projections about, okay, this guy's going to get better, but you just ultimately see it as throughout the course of a ball game, which player at whatever position gives us the best chance to win.
What do you like about Sua Opeta and Ben Bridgeson?
Yeah, those guys played a lot of football in the league. I think Ben's had 25 career starts, and Sua, I think 11 career starts in his time in Philly. Came from a really good offense, really good offensive line. He had a lot of good players on that line that he was competing with. And I think Sua is one of those guys that, even though he's a backup in the league, certainly is going to have to be a starter around the league. And he's both of them come from well-coached groups and good outfits, and both of those guys we're excited to have.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you.
Carberry?
Yes, sir.